Hey folks, it's been a while since I last recorded. Just been really kind of a bad place, so to speak. A couple things have happened. I have started up my exercise routine even more. I've lost a few more pounds, gone down to 186. I'll have to weigh myself at the end of of this week because things kind of fluctuate based on if I've eaten or if I'm drinking a lot of water or fluids like juice or soda or whatever. And if I have to exercise and so on, some of that water weight changed there. Um, but other than that, I've gotten really close to relapsing. That's probably the biggest thing that's happened, so far. The main event of that, and it's really hot here in this car, so that's why I'm sweating. But geez, I hope I don't get in trouble parked over here. But anyways, I'm on UCSD's campus, waiting outside the Atkinson Hall. Waiting for my friend to text me back because he has a research lab thing here, and I've been trying to get involved with that. But before I burn up in here, just gonna describe what happened. Essentially, I've had several bouts of just fantasizing about sexual intercourse, and um, recalling old porn scenes. The last ones I saw, the ones that really like fired me up, so to speak. That spoke to a lot of my desires as far as the kind of women I find attractive and that sort of thing in real life. More you know more along those lines. But so I started off with that fantasizing, and then I got to the point where I was gonna try to use some lucid dreaming music to get myself into that trance state, that dream state, where then I could just it's the whole trying to find a loophole rationalization where, okay, if I'm dreaming when it happens and I have a wet dream that I've induced myself about a subject that I want to have, that kind of event about, well, then it's not technically a relapse, which it technically isn't, but that mindset is dangerous and bad. And the lucid dreaming music I was listening to it had the whole title like erotic hypnosis in it, classic thing, but classic mistake, but this one was mostly just kind of weird. Like they call itself erotic hypnosis, but this one was different than the other ones. The other ones were basically like porn audio mixed in with some like other sounds, sound samples. But this one was like purely just water flowing, kind of like waves or rivers. I guess with the idea that if oh, you listen to this and you think it's erotic, then wet dream, that sort of deal. But um, I did that for a bit and I snapped out of it before things got too late, and I would have gone and then jumped to watching porn, or so I got out of that beforehand, and still I felt like crap, and I still have some of the effects, but um, deeper than that, is the some cool air in here. Deeper than that is the whole question of what's really going on to make me after 100 and almost 180 days, 6 months almost, to go back to that. And I know in the past I've kind of, not kind of, but in many ways I have harped on um, this whole notion of not blaming your environment or your external existence and that sort of deal. And I know I've seen folks say, well, okay, if I quit social media, if I quit the internet, that's the problem. That's the problem. That's why I'm, relapsing to porn. That's why I'm going back and watching it, even if I'm not fapping, even if I'm not edging or, going all the way. And, they'll go and they'll try to say, well, if I get rid of this thing from my life, then, then I'll get it together. And I've kind of, gotten critical of that. I know I said harped on, but, I've been critical of it. But the fact that I'm back here in Southern California with my family, back to the location, not 90% of the time I'd say, unless I'm at work, and even if I'm at work, like just being here again, where the majority of my day, 16 hours out of the 16. Maybe like more like 14, because it's an hour to and an hour from. If I'm just going directly to work and coming back right afterwards, about 14 hours out of the 24-hour day is spent at home around my family, and that toxic environment and just being back there, it's brought back a lot of those like feelings of powerlessness, regressing back to a childlike state in terms of my agency, my ability to decide where I'm going to go, what I'm going to do. The fact that when I moved out of the house, I was able to escape the influence of my mother's alcoholism and my father's mood swings and my sister's, prescription drug dependencies and her smoking problems and her mood swings, her um, mental imbalances and that sort of thing, and able to get out of that and work on myself. Because, even back then, I mean, I noticed that um, if there's four people in a room and there's a problem occurring, it's not necessarily, I mean, you can, in many cases, you could trace it back to a single person, but to a certain extent, everyone kind of contributes. And so, I always felt that, okay, if I, um, maybe not, I'd say like not always, but I came to the conclusion somewhere along that I felt that if I got out of the house and I moved out, got on with my life, so to speak, that not only would make things much more manageable, but I'd be able to work on myself and figure out like what problems were mine, and what were theirs. And if I could do that, then I could at least like get rid of those negativities and the imbalances and blockages in my life. And for instance, the PMO problem. I finally got away from that. Almost coming up on 6 months now. And I couldn't have imagined doing that back then. PMO was the way I dealt with all the crap in my life. And coming back here, feeling stuck, feeling just worn down, bombarded, almost in a sense assaulted, mentally, emotionally, verbally, being in that environment with all that tension and that stress and not being able to sleep at all, or very nearly not able to sleep. Maybe I get an hour or two on average a night, and I have to run on caffeine, and then I have to try to get sleep at some point or another during the day, maybe take a 10-20 minute nap, or maybe I get to take a couple hour nap during the day after I get home, or something like that. Just having that kind of environment where there's someone disrupting things all the time, stressing me out, causing me a lot of anxiety, and I'm not able to control, not able to end it because, it's not me, it's them, and having to realize what I can control, what I can't control, and just, feeling pulled back to that state, feeling that I paid my dues, I've worked on myself, I've improved myself, as the expression goes, God knows, I've got my own flaws still. I wouldn't be making these vlogs. I wouldn't be, working out. I wouldn't be doing all this stuff if there wasn't something about myself that needed to be either improved upon or, jettisoned, I still have my flaws. And, as I go on with these things, I get hopefully more specific, and I actually, like, set a plan and carry it out. But being brought back to that, it's brought back the desire to just, lock myself up in the bathroom or someplace else behind, 1, 2, however many locked doors, fire up the internet on my laptop, turn my laptop, fire it up, or my smartphone if I had one, and go to this porn site and just, fap, because that's escape. And it was me, pretending like I'm having sex with, like, this ideal woman who's, like, the exact opposite of all the things that I would consider to be part of the kind of woman I wouldn't want to marry. If I was pretending that I was having, sexual intercourse with this ideal woman, in my mind, it's kind of like me pretending that I've gotten everything together. I'm not at home anymore. I'm not even just living in a room. I'm actually, I got my own house, car, clothes. My career's taken off. I'm married to this woman who I'm fantasizing about having sex with, and we're doing it in our house, complete abandon, no worries, no concerns, everything's great. And I've been in that state of mind. It's very difficult for me in many ways because, and I know this happens to so many people in life where they have plans, whether it's for the summer, for the break, or whatever, and something comes along and derails it, And it's very easy for me to start feeling a lot of resentment against my father, against my mother, against my sister, because For years, I was told, in particular by my father, if I didn't like the way things were run at the house, me and the family, that I should get a job, get my act together with school, and get the hell out of there. Literally like get out of my house if you don't like it here. Get your own place, then it's your own roof, your own rules. And, if I eventually figured out how I was going to do that, and I did that, and, assuming my finances get straightened out, I'll be returning up to Northern California eventually, sometime by the end of this month, hopefully. And, I have that to look forward to at least, but there's always this whole deal with it feels like always that there's this deal with me getting pulled back and being told that even though I feel like, I've paid my dues, I was the manservant for 7, 8, 10 years almost at the house. And some of that I can't blame on my folks, because they did have genuine medical problems, but a lot of those medical problems are caused because someone was drinking one night and they slipped, fell, and broke their hip. Or, they didn't take their medication like they were supposed to, or they didn't maintain their hygiene, so they got some fever that they wouldn't have gotten if they'd been taking showers on a regular basis. Or something like that, there was at least some measure of them deciding that it was going to happen because they decided to do something stupid, and because of that, my education got put on the sidelines, or it got severely impaired to the point that my GPA wasn't that great and I could barely get into any schools. And I was able to get into the school up north, which as it turns out, thank God, it's actually a good school. For some of the majors, my major, they set the bar a little bit lower because there's limited availability, as they call it. In other words, in that university system, there's not as many campuses that offer, in particular, chemical engineering. So, they lower it down to 2.0 GPA to get in. But, there's always that part of me that wonders, oh, what if all these problems hadn't happened in my life, maybe I still would have ended up in the same spot, I'd be feeling worse. But I'm still amazed that I got as far as I've gotten, But that's been my mental state. Contending with the stuff again, feeling like I can never just get out of the spot, getting pulled back, kind of by a tractor beam, being drawn back in. You're thinking I'm about to jump to hyperspace and get to that spot I need to get to, and then no way, I look down at my console and sit spit, that you've got us in a tractor beam, getting pulled back. And if it weren't for so many of these problems and dynamics and the double standards my father holds for me, not only since I'm the older child, but since I'm the male, and he sees me in many ways as determined by my utility, my values determined by my utility. If I go do the laundry, the dishes, etc., then they'll be nice to me. If I clean the house, then they'll be nice to me. But if I lay around the house all day, like my sister does, or my mother does, I'd be called a lazy good-for-nothing, bleep, 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 and, treated like dirt. Because I didn't get up and do all these things for someone else. Even though in many cases, there are things that other people could have done, or didn't need to be done, except that so-and-so doesn't understand that if you're going to do the laundry or the dishes or what have you, they have to be done in a certain way or what have you, Just complications created by folks who either A, have bad habits, or B, just don't care, and they just want to use these means as a way of screwing with you so they can feel they have power over someone else, And if it was just like my dad wanting to go on a 2-week vacation with my mom, and let's say I was 25 and my sister was 21, and she decided to go to a school closer to home, and she wanted to stay at the house, and my dad was could you come back and watch over younger sister. Mom and I are going to go off to Hawaii for a couple weeks, and all this stuff didn't exist, and it was a perfectly functional family. I don't think I would have a problem coming back for 2 weeks or 2 months and doing this stuff, especially if I got a job like I have right now, And there wasn't this whole sort of quid pro quo setup, like, where if I get a little bit of help in some area of my life, I have to surrender a bunch of my freedom or put up with a bunch of abuse. So all of this has put me in a mental state where I'm very vulnerable. I've been slipping up or slipping down towards that direction of the relapse. And I realize that it's happening, but there's always that little voice in the back of my head that says, well, yeah, you could resist, but why? Why? Of course, the irony is I have this Nofap vlog list going on right now, Road to 1 year, and if I relapse, if I go hop on some porn site and jerk off, well, there goes the road to 1 year. It's, well, okay, I got to 6 months, or longest streak, that sort of thing, and maybe not even 6 months, But I realize this kind of stuff is going on in my life, and it's affecting me the way it is, and, I suppose these things do come along and happen to kind of perhaps give you a sort of a reality check before you actually do relapse, and hopefully motivate you, or in this case myself, to be a little more compassionate towards others, because I know this whole no-fap path is difficult, it's really hard. I may be at the point where I don't consider myself necessarily in the addict stage or addict mode right now, but I'm not out of the woods yet, and I'm 30 years old, and I think a lot of it probably has to do with the fact that not just all these things in my life in particular, but the fact that there really was no Nofap community back when I was, first introduced to pornography. There was no person there saying, there's another way, just like there already was a straight edge movement. There was a straight edge movement saying, you don't have to drink, you don't have to do drugs, you don't have to have promiscuous sex or sex outside of marriage or a committed relationship, or, you don't have to smoke, you don't have to do that kind of stuff. You can still be a young kid and have fun like a young kid or young adult, teenager, young adult, that sort of deal, and still not be doing those things, And, there was that stretch movement already, so I could latch onto that for those things, but there was no Nofap movement, no Nofap community. If you told anyone that you were spending X number of days not beating off, not watching porn, they consider you abnormal, I mean, even nowadays it's kind of like that to a certain extent, that they consider it normal for a guy to be, into that kind of stuff, so dang much. He's an addict, not that being addicted is normal. That you're just supposed to be horny all day long. But it feels good to finally get this off my chest, because it's been hell for the last several days. My mom went on and bought a bunch more wine. She snuck out of the house and did that, and my dad found out last night. There was a big sort of explosion of verbal, conflict or violence last night. And I was afraid my dad was going to lash out against myself and or my sister, because he'd done that in the past, and he's gone, ticked off or angry at my mom. He's gone after the rest of us, and physically attacked me, punched me or tried to strangle me at times, And that didn't happen. Luckily, my sister intervened, there are times when she does things for me, I'm just gee, thanks, even though she's my younger sister, she stepped in and was like, Dad, don't do this, don't lash out at us, and we know you're angry at Mom because she went and did this again, and she was already ended up in the hospital because of her drunkenness. This last time when she fell and cut open her scalp in the back, and the doctor said, I can run a blood alcohol test, but if we do that and it comes up with above a certain point, in other words that she's officially considered intoxicated, then it becomes a police investigation or police jurisdiction situation. The police will step in, put her in an 8-hour detox, and by extension, you guys will be held responsible. Not my mother. No, my dad will be held responsible. I'll be held responsible. Maybe even my sister will be held responsible. It'll be one of those cases. It's where they'll act like my mother's an overgrown child, and we were supposed to be her caretakers and prevent her from drinking, and it's our fault, that she got so drunk and fell. It's not that she, made that conscious decision to go out and do that, despite all the negative consequences, that whole addict mind. They don't hold her responsible for that kind of stuff. It's never her fault, It would be our fault. So my dad decided not to have that test run. And in many ways he regrets it, but at the same time it's kind of like, well, what would have happened, Might have ended up in jail because of that. Even though we're not the ones who were doing the drinking and the knocking things over and the falling and whatnot, But we would be held responsible. And then again, my mom went on and spent money that, in a sense, like we don't have. Should go spend that money on things that are unnecessary. That are unnecessary, that no one needs, We don't need the alcohol. She's the only one who really drinks. She's the alcoholic in the family. And, there are reasons for why, childhood abuse and growing up in a culture where, if you were stressed out or anxious or depressed, you went and drank at the bar. You had a long day at work, a long week at work, you went and drank at the bar. But, it's gotten to the point where, it's an addiction. It's kind of like the whole PMO thing, That got out of hand to the point that it was really screwing up my life. But unlike my mother, I decided enough's enough and I'm taking charge, I'm going to be in charge of my life, not the PMO. And I'm actually going to make the effort, no matter how many slip-ups, no matter how many relapses, no matter how many, steps that I end up taking back. I'm going forward, and I'm beating this. But my mom won't do that with alcohol. She'll deny that she has a drinking problem. She'll say it's our fault. Oh, if you hadn't done this, I wouldn't drink so much. Or if so-and-so hadn't said thus and such thing to me 20 years ago, I wouldn't be drinking like this. Or what have you. And yeah, and she doesn't care how it affects me or my dad or my sister. She doesn't care that when I get woken up in the middle of the night and I have to go, at 5:36 in the morning and try and drive on the freeway down to my work, or my dad has to go drive to work, with less than 3 hours of sleep. She doesn't care what could happen. I mean, heck, even if I was killed in a car accident because of sleep deprivation, and I was there in my coffin, I it's kind of like I would hope that if that happened that she would snap to and finally realize, all that. But the way her mind works is she would just deflect blame. It wasn't that he was sleep deprived, it was the other driver was an effing, fill in the blank minority, And if he hadn't been across the border in our country, or if he hadn't, left the South, moved over here, or whatever, this wouldn't have happened. And, my dad would understand, and he would probably snap at that point, but it's not like it would do anything as far as my mother is concerned. Occasionally opening the door, let some cool air in. But that's what I've been going through, folks. And, I'm having to somehow overcome this mental state because, it's like, for instance, I set out this summer, I was going to say, I'm going to go get these textbooks, I'm going to take the textbooks I have, I'm going to study all these hours, get all this work done, so when I go and retake these classes and I get that ad code, I'll, ace the classes, that was one thing I wanted to do. Another thing I wanted to do was lose a bunch of weight, go down from, I think I was 180 when I came back from Morocco. Wanted to go down from 180 to like 165, which would mean losing a bunch of inches off my waist, going down probably to 9 to 10% body fat, and so on. And it would have been so much easier up north because, for one thing, this bad habit called stress eating wouldn't have been there. Did I stress eat during the semester on and off? Yeah, I did, but I only put on something like 3 to 4 pounds from that. I come back here, and the stress eating is a gazillion times worse. I end up putting on 10 pounds, and I'm having to try to work those pounds off to get back to where I was when the summer started. And so much of it is being back here. But Just like with the PMO problem, I know that if I'm going to get anywhere, while I may acknowledge and perhaps rant about or vent about all these other problems in my life that other folks are creating or exacerbating or amplifying, I have to take charge. I've got to do something about it. I could give up and hope that, I'll make some point to the other person, but, number one, that's not going to happen. The other person's whoever it is that's causing you these problems is a jag-off and doesn't care either way, and they probably still laugh in your face at that point. And number two, what's the point of that? If I struggle through these things and I lose that weight, get back to 180, go down to 175 even, or 170, even if I don't get to 165, I get somewhere close to there, under 180. I study my butt off, I go in this semester, I get those ad codes, I ace those classes on top of my biochemical engineering class, and I get a B minus B or higher in the OChem too. I do all that kind of stuff, and I master enough Moroccan Arabic, and I go over there and I talk to my girlfriend's father, and all these things go well. It'll have been worth it to have gone through the crap. And there's always that party that's going to say, well, what if you'd still fail? But one of the things I know in life is if you don't try, all you're going to have is failure. And you're going to have the failure of having done nothing. Not even attempted anything. Not even tried to climb out of the pit that you got yourself into or were put into. Because a lot of our problems in our lives we inherit from the previous generation or generations. And we can't be blamed for those problems. But what we can be held responsible for is how we contend with those problems. Whether they're ones that we've inherited or ones that we've created ourselves. So, anywho, I might just call that friend of mine a bit, but other than that, I really want to take a nap, and then I want to go and study for a bit, and then meet up with the friend and this other dude in the group who's working on or wanting to work on the same section that I want to work on. So that's my plan for today, and then after I get home, I'm going to try and stay here as long as I can, because I want to mitigate and minimize how much time I'm at home, really. Get the most work done that I can. That's pretty much what I had to do when I was still down here at community college. That's how I was able to get out of here. So, anywho, I think that's it for me right now. I just wanted to get some things off my chest. I don't consider this a relapse, but, you can waffle over definitions of those sorts of things, but I guess the big question is, does it help you move forward? Is it pulling you back? Is it making you feel like crap? And, this thing, it's not helping me forward. It's pulling me back, and it's making me feel like crap. So, I'm not going to do that kind of stuff anymore. No more of this fantasizing, no more laying down. If I'm going to go lay down like that, I'm going to straight up take a nap, None of that lucid dreaming music, because even if it doesn't give me the sort of effects of mentally edging without actually edging, it gives me weird dreams, and I don't sleep well when that kind of stuff happens. So it's always like that sort of part of yourself rationalizing, the addict brain rationalizing away using that stuff. You think you're going to get a certain effect, but then you end up getting weird dreams and insomnia and so on, which it's never good. So no more of that, and I will have to continue on and just try to establish this routine for now. Just after work, coming here, keeping the stuff in my car, making sure I have it with me, and I can just study and I can work on those problems in the books, and then eventually jump back to that programming project, which I'm halfway through, though some of the code really isn't working like it's supposed to. Maybe it's because it's on my laptop, not on a desktop. But work on that after I work on the problems from the textbook. exercise, at least 3 miles jogging, 3 miles walking, burn enough calories off, watch my diet, just gonna have to keep on at that kind of stuff. And I may not get 100% of the results I wanted to, but I'm gonna get somewhere. So anywho, I said that a bazillion times right now, I think. See you folks around. Thanks for watching my content. Thanks for the likes, the comments, the subscriptions. Thanks for the support. I really appreciate it. Just getting this stuff off my chest and having some sort of dialogue really does assist me. And I hope seeing that, I've gotten this far and I'm still going, maybe inspire some other folks who are, down in the dumps, or maybe they've relapsed, maybe they're on the verge of relapsing, maybe they, haven't even done Nofap, but they're considering it. It's a tough path, but, I find it so far to be worthwhile. So, that's it. See you around. Bye.